only 21 years old, and now I'm drinking alone. I use my phone until it dies, just like my plants can't keep anything alive. Ooh, alive. And I'm sick of being my own best friend. Will you be there in the end?
I guess this is sort of the first of a trilogy of videos. All three of these videos began as very long, like half-hour, track-by-track, detailed analysis videos, kind of like the Green Day ones I've been making, but then I realized that was just a little too in-depth. I was pushing it a little much. I really want to talk about these albums, but not in that much detail. So I'm here with more traditional, laid-back, review-style videos.
Wanna hold the silence, every heart broken, put them all in a room and say you're over it. I'm fine, you're alive, you'll be okay in some time.
Even though they only put out 2 releases, 1 EP and 1 LP with a total of less than 20 songs to their name, Diasig were definitely one of my absolute favorite top 10 punk bands to come out of the 2010s. While you might fairly expect a top 10 punk band of the decade to reach that acclaim through some incredible and masterful musician work, such as your Strung Outs, or through a unique and original take on a genre that you've never quite heard before, along the lines of your Pups, or maybe for bold politics and philosophy like your Bad Religions, none of those reasons are why I love Diasig. On their surface, Diasig are a very simple band. It was originally just a 2-piece, and now it's just a 3-piece, and they write catchy and melodic pop punk. And while that descriptor is certainly accurate, it doesn't embody the whole picture. What sets Diasig apart to me are definitely their identity as a band and the charisma that they carry. They're probably the closest thing that you can get in punk to something cutesy and wholesome. They take the very core essence and DNA of a surf pop punk band like the Queers. They mix in a bit of that ear for very catchy and enjoyable melody that pop rock bands like early Tegan and Sarah had, and they tie it together with what I guess is just the vocalist Alex's personality. So Diasig songs are built equal parts. They're both these catchy, sugary, sweet melodic songs, but they're also built on this strong foundation of surf punk with their flow, with their energy, and with their identity. And then add on top of that Diasig's own identity, this low-key self-confidence. This, I guess you could describe it as slightly self-deprecating and self-mocking, self-love and appreciation. And I think a good way to look at their sound holistically is to look at the opening song 16 off their debut LP, Swear I'm Good at This. It opens with a very distraught but still melodic and catchy guitar line, with vocalist Alex absolutely wailing and caterwauling in a very self-aware and sort of comedic and very self-deprecating tone. So when the vocalist sneers, "Ready?" and then the percussion blasts into life with the pounding but simplistic rhythm structure that it takes, and that familiar, hazed-out, washed-out surf punk guitar line takes hold and ramps the song up but still maintains the melody, and the vocalist goes in and carries the melody mostly with her voice. I think that they are able to channel something that a lot of pop punk attempts, but usually unfortunately falls short of, and that they're able to become very snide and sarcastic at times, but are then able to root it into their own vulnerability. So I guess through their identity and their themes and the things they sing about, the vocalist is able to paint a picture of an identity of someone who's very vulnerable and self-conscious, but also emotionally intelligent. That they take this self-confidence and this fuck you attitude with a lot of earnestness and intelligence about what it really means to them. So in contrast to how a lot of pop punk can kind of end up feeling a little childish or unauthentic, just in their blanket fuck you, don't listen to authority thing with everybody, sometimes feeling without reason just to be a little edgy and therefore feeling a little childish, Diasig is able to take that and make it into something a little more emotionally satisfying and in a lot of ways kind of empowering. Like Diasig is sugary, sweet, emotional role model punk, if that makes any sense. Just blatantly helps make the music a little more relatable, helps make the protagonist of the songs feel more like a real person rather than a more cartoonish persona that some pop punk can fall into. And everything I just said stands true both for their old releases and for the new one, though on the new one it manifests in slightly different ways, which I wasn't entirely anticipating, but which I ended up being very happy with in the end. The first album was the most upright raw with the most distortion and most washed out surf punk. The second one cleaned things up a little and put a little more of an acoustic spin, and more or less just grew on their sound and helped establish it for what it was, especially with the melodic hooks. And the newest album definitely grew off of that foundation and pushed the envelope a little and helped to define what Diet Sig can sound like. The first big noticeable change is that while the band used to just be a two-piece with the vocalist/guitarist and the percussionist with some synthesizer or keys layered in, they now have a third permanent member in the form of a bassist. And while I was initially hesitant in learning this, since I thought that the chemistry just between those two was so excellent, the bassist actually perfectly matches the vibe that they have going. Now with the three-piece, they're definitely able to grow more in the rhythm section. It used to be that the melody absolutely took the spotlight, and the just drummer in the rhythm section was forced to play a very traditional, straight-up and more simple role. But now that the percussionist is, for lack of a better word, freed to do whatever he wants, that's allowed the complexity of the rhythm section to exponentially grow, and consequently the complexity of the entire arrangement to skyrocket. Now that the rhythm section is able to grow with itself and three instruments are allowed to play off each other with great chemistry, as all three of these members have, it allows the songs to become less melodic in a straight-up repetitive and catchy in a straight-up repetitive way to a more self-reflecting, self-growing way. Think of it going from NoFX's more very repetitive and short songs on some of their EPs to something a little more self-growing, more like what you might hear on Nimrod or Warning. The bass in general is very low-key and dissonant and kind of distant in the track, but nonetheless also a little energetic and bouncy, which is the perfect atmosphere for this band. It allows it to have that little bit of bouncy surf punk that you expect for the cliches of the genre, but also for the bass to still step back and take a more atmosphere-filling, haze-filling role as the guitar line is able to slip into more of the melodic focus, which Alex is very good at. And with this newfound freedom to develop the songs as they go and take them into more instrumentally interesting places, the album really takes advantage and goes in some really weird and unexpected directions. Some of the songs are very clean, polished, and hyper-poppy, while others are very straight up and even more punk than anything that they'd written before. Just the album ends up being very diverse and explores pretty much everything that it can while still staying completely true to that bass Diet Sig sound. There are songs that are almost surf ballads, there are little acoustic-y breaks, there are songs that are very distorted and out of touch with reality. There are songs that are a lot more ferocious. Now, admittedly, none of these songs, save two or three, are distinctly unique. They still work with the cliches and tropes of surf punk, and Diet Sig as a whole are still definitely a genre band operating in surf punk. They have that bit of the nostalgic sound, and they evoke a lot of different bands, and are not in and of themselves an entirely unique listen. And that's fine. Not every band has to be that. But I think to hear so much range and diversity from a singular band on a singular album makes this a very diverse, energetic, and exciting listen to go through. Like, none of these songs are exactly what I was expecting, and I absolutely love that. It's a very unexpected listen throughout. And while it's definitely different from the debut album and definitely different from the EP, it's still thoroughly enjoyable, and I think I like it just as much. I'm just, all in all, really impressed that they were able to expand on their sound but still keep entirely true to what made them good, and entirely preserve their energy while adding a new member and mixing up and expanding on their sound and doing everything they could to make this album a new and fresh listen. You have major kudos for me, Diet Sig. I recommend this album to anybody who's a fan of surf punk, anyone who's a fan of pop punk or poppy punk in general, and even if you're more of a hardcore head, I recommend that you at least give it a try, because their atmosphere, their enthusiasm, that poppy, clean, playful energy they have is very infectious, and while I wouldn't think that I'd like a band like that on paper, they absolutely nail it and sell it to me. If you're a fan of letter scores, then I give this album a B or B+, and that makes the second LP, Do You Wonder About Me, pretty much tied with their first LP. It's a wonderful listen, and I highly recommend it.
This next song is another song about getting it on. We played it a lot last year at South by, and it was the first time it had really been heard. And you guys, were so kind to it. And it's about a boy that I went to high school with. And he recently found out that the song's about him, and you know what he did? We don't really talk a lot anymore, and he Snapchat DM'd me. Yeah, I know. I was like, sorry, I didn't give him a response.